This is Coach Lee, and I've been a relationship coach for 20 years, and I've helped thousands to reunite with the one they love and couples to have the type of relationship and marriage that they want for the rest of their lives. I've been interviewed by the New York Times twice, USA Today, the Today Show in Australia, and lots of other news outlets when they're looking for a relationship expert to help them with a story. I'm glad you registered for this free mini course on how to save your relationship, and I'm going to give you my best. I just ask that you take notes, you watch this video all the way through, you have an open mind and an open heart. Help is here, so let's get started. I obviously don't know your exact situation. There could be several things that have caused you to get into this place where your relationship is in danger and you're seeking help. Whether it be angry outbursts, dishonesty, affairs, rejection, or other issues that have brought you to this point, my organization and I have been able to help people in that situation, and we've done so for years. I've assisted in PhD research. I co-founded an organization that works specifically with marriages in crisis. And so what I'm going to present to you is based on professional observation, PhD research, and years of my own trial and error, as well as the coaches on my staff. The first thing I'm going to tell you to do is to do your best to stop any drama and fighting. And you may think, well, that's what I'm here for, is to hear you tell me how to do that. What I'm telling you is, as much as it's up to you, that you don't try to start things. And that even includes diving into the issues that you face. That's one of the differences here between what we do and some of the counseling that's out there, is that sometimes venting and going over the issues actually causes more harm than good. As a matter of fact, a lot of the time, that's what happens. And I have advised couples in the past successfully to stop going to counseling for the time until they are actually healthy enough to do so. Because as one woman described it to me, we only see each other one day a week because we're separated. And it's for an hour when we go to our counselor. And all we do is go back into issues that have caused pain. We vent, we get angry at each other, and then we don't see each other for another week. Does that sound like a recipe to help a couple get back together? It doesn't to me, and it does not work most of the time. It's sort of like if you broke your leg. You wouldn't expect the doctor to say, okay, we need to get you out running marathons tomorrow. Healing is required, at least to some extent, before you can start trying to function normally, or before you cause difficulty in the situation. You don't expect someone who is a doctor to tell another person, I know that your leg is broken, but you should start running on it. Usually we say, when it's healed, then you start running. And so that's what I'm going to tell you to do, is to stop putting so much pressure on a relationship that's already struggling. Stop going into the issues, stop the fighting, stop the drama as much as you can. And obviously it's not all you, but you're going to stop your part. You're going to calm down, and you're going to do the second thing that I'm going to advise you to do, focus on small positives. That can even be making your spouse, your partner, a cup of coffee, having breakfast with them, asking them how their day went, and just giving them a reassuring or positive response. It can be watching a comedy together and laughing. It can be helping them carry their things to the car to go to work, or it can be a simple compliment on their appearance, how they're dressed, something like that. All of those things can be very helpful, even though they seem very small, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to warm the other person. You're trying to help them feel that connection again with you. And a lot of times, one of the worst things that happens is when the other person tells you that they're thinking about not being in the relationship anymore, they're thinking about separating, breaking up, divorcing, whatever it is, then you try to dive into the issues. And some of that can be okay, but what often happens is that both of you get angry and it just causes fighting. And the odds are you have had some of these conversations already. So some of these things have already been discussed. If you don't even know what the issues are, that's definitely something that we can help you with. And I'll get into more of that later. But most likely you already know at least some of the things, some of their reasoning, and it could just be that they are in an affair. The same is still true. The awkwardness, the negativity, the anxiety that can come from trying to constantly talk about these things, go through them and dissect them can be a large negative, and it should be the minority of what you do with this person and how you interact with them. When you're focusing on the positives, another thing that you need to do is to make sure that you are meeting this person's needs. And that's, of course, if they're interacting with you at all. If you have the opportunity to do these things, then that's what you need to do. And some of these things are just not going to be possible, especially if you're broken up or separated. But you want to do things that give them such a positive experience with you that when they walk away from it, they miss it. Whereas if you two are fighting and yelling, even if you're trying to go through issues, it's not going to be something that they welcome or that they feel attracted to. They're going to dread it in a lot of ways. Just like the person I told you about who was going to counseling every week with her husband. And that was the only time they saw each other. And all they did was vent and bring up the past and try to work through negatives. There is some positivity in that. And we work with counselors. We've had lots of therapists reach out to us about strategies to get an ex back for them, to reunite with the one they love, or to create a better marriage for them. All I'm saying is that if you're going to go through the issues, that it should be a minority of the time. And if you're with a counselor, then you need to tell them that you want to try your best to heal before you go into the issues, to at least have some positive interaction between the two of you where some of the warmth can be brought back. A lot of people use our workshop as a starting point for a couple who's in crisis. Maybe they left you, and you're just trying to get them to the table to where they're willing to work on it. And a lot of times they'll say, yeah, I'll go to counseling, but they're really not willing to work on it. They don't want to do it. They just don't think it's going to work. And so the counseling's going to be difficult as far as being able to help at all if this other person doesn't even want to. That's one of the great things about our workshop is you don't have to have a partner who wants to save the relationship. And some people will say, well, it requires two people wanting to save it. It actually doesn't, because it's our job to convince your partner, to convince your spouse that this can work, that this can be the marriage or the relationship that they want. That's our job to show them that. But we have found that counseling works a lot better if a couple goes to this workshop, or just one person. If it's only you who wants to save the relationship and you go to our workshop, we're able to show you what you can do to get your partner to the table to where they are willing to give it another try, to work on it, and they can actually see that it could work. Now, therapy can work in that situation. And that's what we're here for. And counselors will often refer couples to us, to our workshop, where they can go before starting a counseling regimen. So stop the yelling, stop the drama, and start doing small positives. Number 3, attempt to self-diagnose the situation. And I'm not saying you should take action based on this, but try to write down what you think has happened, what has got you to this point, what needs to be done. And that's at least a good starting point, especially if we work with you in our workshop. That can be very helpful. It's also very helpful if your partner is in the place to do this. You go to your spouse and you say, could you tell me what happened? How do you think we got to this point? If you've already had this conversation, don't do it again. It will be a negative. But if you haven't, and if you're on speaking terms, and sometimes you go into that, then I suggest that you ask that question. Again, this should be something that is very rare. Shouldn't be a daily conversation. If you're doing the other things, or you've stopped the fighting and you've started the small positives, then this is something you can do after you've at least shown them a few days of being able to interact more positively with them, so that this doesn't feel like it's constant and it's a daily occurrence, because that's certainly something that will push them away. If they associate you with yelling and anxiety and fighting and negativity and constantly rehashing the past, then they're going to continue their efforts to try to get away from you. Number 4 is something you may have already done, but you can do it again as long as you don't overdo it. If you're saying this every day, it can lose its value. But if you haven't already said it, or if it's been a while and you've just applied these steps, then you can do this. But it's where you clarify your understanding and your willingness. So you tell them, I understand what happened. I understand why you want to leave, and I'm willing to change what I need to change so that you want to stay. And you just ask them to take it one day at a time with you. We have to know what their response is, whether that's a yes or an I'll think about it or a no. You at least want to have that, because that's our starting point. And in the workshop, we can help you if we have that information. So it's important to clarify your understanding and your willingness, and to see what they say, to see what your partner, your spouse says. And before I get to number 5, I want to tell you about an experience I had with a client recently. I got a picture. I was actually in the middle of a coaching session with someone trying to save their relationship when I got this. And I just kind of glanced at it because I thought it could be my wife or something that I needed to check on and just ask the person to hold on a second. but I saw that it was from this client. And so I thought, I'll check on that in just a minute. And the person I was speaking to actually said, "Hey, coach, can you hang on a second? I've got to answer the door." So I said, "Sure." So she went to answer the door and I picked up the phone and looked, and it was from this client. So he had sent me a picture, and the picture was of a baby. It was actually several babies. They were in the area where they're placed after they've been born so the nurses can keep an eye on them. And lots of the moms and dads are outside of the glass looking at these babies. So I saw that and I thought, what is this? I hadn't spoken to this particular client in a while, so I wasn't real sure what he was implying until I read his message. And he actually told me that he was standing in front of the glass looking at this child, and it occurred to him. He said, "Coach, this baby wouldn't even be here if I hadn't gone to you to help me save my marriage." It was honestly one of the greatest moments of my life. And to this day, I think about him doing that, him sending me that, which I appreciated greatly. I think about that almost every day. And some of those days when I am discouraged, or maybe I'm doing a lot of work and I'm busy and it's getting a little difficult, I remember that story and the happiness that it brings me. And he just said, "I wanted to thank you." And what he did was, first of all, he just said, "Coach, I'm putty in your hands. Tell me what to do and I'll do it." And what he was willing to do is number 5 here on my list. He committed to long-term effort. And one of the mistakes that a lot of people do when they get in your situation is they try to fix everything at once. They want the answer from their spouse or their partner of commitment right away. You're going to recommit. We're going to work on this. That's the wrong move. Or they try to just fix everything within a day or two and think that everything is supposed to go back to normal. That's a mistake as well. You have to see this as a marathon and not a sprint. It is going to take some time. And part of that's because this other person has experienced the relationship in one way for so long, or to at least a point in time to where they wanted to end it and leave. And 1 or 2 days, a week, it's just not enough time for them to really trust it. Now, sometimes they'll commit to that. And if they're willing to try, that's a great situation. But when they're not, you cannot expect them to be willing to give it all back because they feel like the trust has been broken as far as your role as a partner. And other things have happened too. Attraction has fallen, but a lot of times that's purely emotional attraction, and it's because of the negative interactions that you two have had over a certain amount of time. And so it will take time where these positive interactions can help. But I want you to know that you increase your chances significantly by getting into our workshop. And you can do this by yourself or with your partner. But we are able to show you what you need to do and what you need to stop doing. And we're able to see what has happened and give you individual attention on this to where we're taking you by the hand and helping you as you take the necessary steps day by day to rebuild and reattract this person. Most people who have not been through a divorce have no idea how much it costs, and that on average, it's going to cost each person involved almost $40,000. But then the cost is ongoing in that you split up a family, and there's all kinds of research and information on just how negatively that impacts the kids, the children, if you have them. And so it's going to cost you something. You just have to decide how much. It's either going to cost you if you lose this relationship to divorce, or it's going to cost you if you save it. I can tell you right now, it costs so much less, at least with our workshop, to save your relationship than it would for divorce. And the benefits of having a strong marriage, a strong family, last a lifetime. And that's what I want you to have. The workshop is not for everybody, and that's why I encourage you to use the calendar below this video to book a call so that a caring member of our staff can just get your information, learn a little bit about it, and tell you if this workshop is right for you and what your part in that would be. And if you register for the workshop, we have homework for you right away that will help your situation, and we're going to get on a call with you so that we can start and get as much momentum before the workshop as possible. We want to have as much work done before the workshop so that we can roll our sleeves up and get to work helping you save your relationship. The workshop is called Relationship Reignite, and the calendar is below to book that free call where you can at least see if it's right for you. I'm speaking from my heart when I say that saving your relationship is the best thing that you can do for yourself, for your family, and for your partner. Don't just click away. Don't just give up. We are professionals, and it's been our life's work to save relationships just like yours, to make them better than before, and to keep families together. The calendar's below. Scheduling that call is your next step to save your relationship. I hope to see you in the workshop. I hope to meet you. And I hope that your story is one of the ones that will encourage me to keep doing this, because happiness is so contagious, and that's what I want for you. The calendar's below. Thank you for watching.